Well, thank you everyone for the kind invitation to present at this important conference. I would first like to invite you to sign up for the Ruth Institute's free electronic newsletter. The Ruth Institute is a global nonprofit organization focused on preventing of divorce and helping the millions of people who have been harmed by it. We'll send you a weekly newsletter filled with information from our resource center, filled with decades of research and educational tools to support you and your families, those who have been harmed by divorce, the hookup culture, and other aspects of the sexual revolution. You can sign up on the goldenrod sheets that are being circulated among our people here, that are at the end of the rows and being circulated by my young friends of the Emerging Leaders Program here at the World Congress of Families. The Ruth Institute has a dream. Our dream is that every child be welcomed into a loving home with a married mother and father. So that, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So that every child can have a relationship with his or her own parents unless some unavoidable tragedy prevents it. So that every adult, without exception, can know his or her cultural heritage and genetic identity. Presumably, this is the dream of everybody here, yes? Yeah. When children are deprived of these rights without a good and unavoidable reason, we at the Ruth Institute call this a structural injustice to the child. The sexual revolution promised us equality, freedom, and fun, but it has proven to be inhuman. Allow me to illustrate the human train wreck with the story of a little girl named Elise. Elise is 6 years old and lives with her grandmother. Elise's mother has never married, but has 2 children with 2 different men. Elise is the elder child. Elise and her family are an example of what our elite classes are pleased to call an alternative family form. What they mean to say by that expression is that having a child outside of a lifelong marriage between one man and one woman is not particularly a big deal. Not for the people who do it, not for the children, not for society as a whole. Just another lifestyle choice that we ought to support, celebrate, and never judge. Demographers describe Elise's family with the term multi-partner fertility. They came up with this term because they discovered that when a woman has a child out of wedlock, the odds are very high that her next child will also be out of wedlock and with a different man. The demographers will tell you that children like Elise are at risk for a host of unpleasant outcomes. By these standards, Elise is actually in pretty good shape. She lives with her grandma, who loves her, and not in foster care. She's never been abused by her mother's boyfriends, to the best of my knowledge, and she's doing okay in school. But let me tell you just this one fact about Elise. Her family gets together for Christmas, Thanksgiving, other holidays. Her mother comes with her new boyfriend and the new baby that they had together. At every one of these family get-togethers, Elise acts out with angry and unmanageable behavior. She typically wets her bed every night for about a week. Those family gatherings are reminders that her mother doesn't want her. Every holiday stirs up the feeling that her mother doesn't love her. If she were old enough to put it into words, she might tell you that she feels like a leftover from a previous relationship. This is what an alternative lifestyle means to a child. We're faced with 2 competing worldviews. The worldview of people of faith is this: every child, and hence every adult, has identity rights and relational rights with respect to their parents. And this is the part we don't like to say too loudly. These rights impose legitimate obligations on adults to provide these things to children. We don't like to say that too loud because people resist hearing that they have obligations to others that they didn't explicitly choose to bear. Now, the competing worldview is this: every adult has the right to the sexual activity they want with a minimum of inconvenience, and children have to accept whatever the adults choose to give them. We do not say this last part too loud because we'd be ashamed of ourselves if we just blurted it out. But that is approximately the position of most of the people in power of most of the so-called developed countries. They believe it is the job of the government to minimize the inconvenience that adults experience from their sex lives. Now, we at the Ruth Institute have developed a brochure showing some of the victims of the sexual revolution, and it's in your packet. Every one of you has one of these. It looks like this. So please take this out of your packet. Take a moment to reach into your blue bags and pull out this brochure. I'm going to talk about it in a moment. So what exactly do I mean by the sexual revolution? I define the sexual revolution as having three main ideas. The first revolutionary idea is that a good and decent society ought to separate sex from childbearing. The second revolutionary idea is that a good and decent society ought to separate both sex and childbearing from marriage. These two ideas combined have created the hookup culture, the divorce culture, the single mother by choice culture, the adultery culture that has led to millions of users of the Ashley Madison Internet Adultery Matching Service. The final idea of the sexual revolution is that men and women are completely interchangeable. Any differences that we observe between men and women are socially constructed and almost certainly unjust. A good and decent society should obliterate all differences between men and women, except for those that are deliberately chosen by individuals. A man can become a woman can become a man. Society's job is to endorse the individual's self-understanding and enforce it throughout the rest of society. Now, there's just one obvious problem with this set of ideological claims. All three of them are false. Sex really does make babies. Y'all with me on that? Sex really does make babies. Children really do need their parents, and marriage attaches children to their parents. And men and women really are different. And so we have a situation in which the people in power in all the major developed countries believe that they have a moral obligation to build a society around three claims that are patently false. It takes a lot. Yeah. My friends, it takes a lot of force to do that. It takes a lot of propaganda to make people believe these things. After all, we receive evidence to contradict these claims on a daily basis. On a daily basis, we will see that children need their mothers and fathers. On a daily basis, we'll receive evidence that men and women are different. And every once in a while, we will see that sex actually does make babies. We have some of these, and babies are caused by sex and not by contraceptive failure. We see these contraceptive failures around the room here today, So that is why I believe that the sexual revolution is a totalitarian ideology. It is neither left nor right. It is a new totalitarian ideology standing all on its own. Yes, that's what I think. Now, if you ever feel like you're being weighed down and you're being bombarded with propaganda, if you ever feel like there's just one more TV show, one more advertisement, one more study that was obviously produced by an advocacy group designed to make you believe all these things, you are correct. You are being barraged with propaganda. Because all of these things are untrue and they cannot stand up on their own. They have to be continually propped up and reinforced. I think few people, even the most ardent opponents of the sexual revolution, have really understood just how deep and insidious the sexual revolution really is. Now, please, if you would, take a look at this brochure. Do you all have a copy of the brochure? Did you pull it out here? Okay, all right. So now as you open up the flap, what I want you to do is just open up the flap and I want you to look down the left-hand column. And you will see in this left-hand column the list of people who have been harmed by the sexual revolution. Let me give you a scene here. At the top of the list of the victims of the sexual revolution, children of divorce. As you look down the column, you'll see children of unmarried parents, the reluctantly divorced. Do you know that most divorces take place against the wishes of one party? We call them the reluctantly divorced. You'll see the heartbroken career woman, donor-conceived persons, pornography addicts, post-abortive women, and the list goes on. I expect you will see someone you know, and if you can't find your brochure, go over to our table and you'll find one. Men, women, and children, everybody has been harmed with the possible exception of a handful of predatory alpha males. Now, if you open up the brochure further, over here on this column, you'll see the lies that people were told. And right at the top of the list of the lies of the sexual revolution, kids are resilient. That's the granddaddy of all lies of the sexual revolution. Many people broke up perfectly adequate marriages and embarked on new relationships with that lie in their minds. If they had known how much their children would suffer, surely many of them would have done something different. Now, on the screen right now, I'm showing you some of the risks facing children of divorce. This table is based on literally hundreds of scholarly articles and books produced over the last 40 years. These negative outcomes derive from the basic injustice done to children by separating them from one of their parents without an unavoidable reason. And if you want, I will email you a PDF copy of this whole PowerPoint if you've signed up for the email list. So I hope that list is still going around and people are getting a chance to sign it. So all of these problems flow from the basic injustice that the children are enduring. Secure attachments between a child and each of his or her parents builds the foundation for the development of the child's personality. In the child's little world, mother and father are the most important and powerful people. Parents act as stand-ins for God himself. And from this most basic relationship, the child develops a sense of himself as a social and spiritual being. Is the world a safe place for me? Do I really belong? Am I worthy of love? Divorcing parents may say to their child, we still love you, we just don't love each other anymore. But the child's other parent is half of who they are. The child cannot make sense of these contradictory claims because they're not really true. The parent creating the separation is telling the child, I want something else more than I want a relationship with your other parent, that is, with half of you. And in their hearts, the kids know it. Now, this table that I'm showing here is based on another brochure that the Ruth Institute has created called Children and Divorce. Children of divorce were the first victims of the sexual revolution. They've been followed by children of single parents and now by children of same-sex couples. We intend to create brochures for all of the victims of the sexual revolution. And you'll be able to see the ones we've already created back at our Ruth Institute table over in the next ballroom at booth number 11. And all of these children have at least this one thing in common. The adult's relationship with their sex partners is more important to them than their relationship with the child's other parent. Needless to say, this conflict does not even arise in families where the mother and father are continuously married to each other. It's no wonder the children are upset. It's no wonder all these pathologies develop. It's no wonder they don't feel good and are doing badly in school. They can't make sense of the impossible situation. Now, before I move on, I want to talk about one other category of the victims of the sexual revolution, and that is the donor-conceived person. Do you like my little baby barcode image here? Okay. Advocates for donor conception try to create the impression that donor-conceived children are so wanted by their parents that the chosenness of the child will override all of the other problems. Problems that so often arise from living with an unrelated adult, the pain that children often feel from the absence of one of their biological parents, all these risks can be safely disregarded. But the children of donor conception have something to say for themselves. Many of them do long for their missing parent. Some feel shame about being partially purchased. Some have anxieties about inadvertently encountering an unknown half-sibling. I recently met a young man who has reason to believe that he has 500 half-siblings. He left his hometown and moved 1,000 miles away because he had too many encounters with people who looked strangely like himself. Third-party reproduction arrangements are morally problematic for all the same reasons as divorce, only more intensely so. For most of these children, their gamete donor is anonymous and is not part of their family. One of the parents has made a decision to completely cut the other parent out of their lives. This is a greater injustice than divorce or separation because it's deliberate from the beginning and it is permanent. So how many victims of the sexual revolution are there? Well, we don't really know for sure, but we do know a few things. We know that about 1 million children per year have experienced their parents' divorce every year since 1972. Over 1 million children per year have been born to unmarried parents every year since 1988. In 2008, 1.7 million children were born to unmarried parents. By 2010, about 20 million children were living in single-parent households. I want you to know that I will never accept this as normal. I will never accept it. I don't care how often it happens. I don't care what any court or Congress has to say about it. This is wrong. Now, let's face it. Family breakdown hurts kids. They don't all just get over it. And this adds up to a lot of hurting people of all ages. Isn't it time somebody did something about it? We think it is. We think it is. And you can help. You can help. I have something I want you to do. These victims of the sexual revolution need not remain victims. They can grow from being victims to becoming survivors to becoming advocates for positive change. People with a past and possibly a guilty conscience need not be enemies of the pro-family movement. They can be our most fervent allies. They can speak about the pain of the sexual revolution directly from their personal experience. Mary Magdalene can speak a truth the Virgin Mary knows nothing of. So how can you help? You can spread the word that it's okay to speak out about the harms of the sexual revolution. If you yourself are a survivor, do not be afraid to speak out. Those of us baby boomers who participated in the sexual revolution and lived to tell about it, we need to tell about it. We need to make a second career out of speaking the truth about our experiences. And if you're embarrassed to admit that you did wrong, consider this. Every time you do, you're helping somebody else. You make it easier for the next person to admit they were wrong. You make it easier for somebody innocent to make good choices. Remember, we're all dealing with an intense legacy of lies told repeatedly and publicly. The truth-telling of the whole story of the sexual revolution is absolutely necessary for any positive social and political change. Now, I realize that we are up against the rich and powerful people of our world. Predatory alpha males like the sexual revolution, while ordinary people have been resisting it from the beginning, and we continue to resist it, from the pro-life movement to the pro-marriage movement. These are grassroots movements standing up to the elites. And so I want to leave you with this helpful point. If everyone who's been harmed by the sexual revolution spoke out and told the whole truth about it, we would bring it to an end. George Soros, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, they do not have enough money to combine to silence all of us. Now, I hope that my non-Catholic friends will indulge me in a bit of slightly humorous Catholic triumphalism here that I have on the screen. The church has faced many dark times, and so indeed has the whole human race. So let us close with a few words from a very dark time indeed, back in 1940, when the Nazis occupied most of Western Europe. The British were forced to evacuate their troops from Dunkirk. And as we know, the Allied forces came back 4 years later with the landing at Normandy Beach on D-Day to eventually win World War II. But nobody knew that when the Allies evacuated from Dunkirk. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill gave one of his most famous speeches at that time. And keep in mind, when he uses the term perverted science, he's referring to eugenics, a perverted science indeed. And here is what he said. If we fail, then the whole world, including the United States, including all that we have known and cared for, will sink into the abyss of a new dark age, made more sinister and perhaps more protracted by the lights of perverted science. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth should last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour. We have it on good authority that Christianity will last until the end of time, be that 1,000 years or a mere 1,000 minutes. Let this be our finest hour. Thank you very much.